Let's talk about the dumb shit that Stephen Miller said on television today. He was on some show and spouted off a bunch of shit that is legally incorrect, and he was doing his best JD Vance. At JD Vance's press conference last week, JD Vance, who went to Yale Law School and who is an extremely smart person, he's a douchebag and has no core principles of any kind whatsoever. But he's very smart and he knows how to present an argument, I'll put it that way, and make it sound forceful and educated. Stephen Miller, when Stephen Miller tries to do that, first of all, his body language and the sound in his voice, he's always like, and his voice, this dickless naked mole rat of a human being who apparently, according to his wife, is a sexual matador in the bedroom. Ew. The sound of his voice is like fingernails on a chalkboard, man. And I mean, he can't pull it off. When he just sounds like he's screaming at a parking meter attendant every time he tries to come on TV and sound, forceful when he says stuff like this. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for him because he doesn't have that thing. He doesn't have that thing. He comes across like an incredibly angry little man who's just yelling at people and nobody pays attention to him. He's like screaming for people's attention all the time. And everybody's just like, fuck, that guy again? Jesus Christ. It's like, make it stop. And so he went on TV and misstated the law on purpose. I put up, I don't know, 4 or 5 videos that I duetted on my backup page earlier tonight that showed ICE officers screaming at protesters and getting in their faces and saying, you're in violation of federal law. You're in violation of 18 USC 111, Chapter 18 of the U.S. Code, Section 111, which is about the forceful or forcible, physically forcible prevention of preventing a law enforcement officer from discharging their duties. Forcible, physical. These ICE agents keep saying that to people who are flipping them off, who are speaking to them, who are challenging their authority, who are yelling at them, who are calling them assholes and pieces of shit. And these ICE agents are getting in their face and saying, you're in violation of 18 USC 111 and I'm going to arrest you. ICE agents are stupid and they don't understand the law. And the same thing applies to Stephen Miller, who went on TV and said to all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties. Well, the Minneapolis shooter Jonathan Ross is not going to be prosecuted by the federal government. He's going to be prosecuted by the state government, by the Hennepin County District Attorney, Mary Moriarty. Federal immunity has absolutely no bearing or impact on state charges. Ask Tina Peters, who is serving a 10-year prison sentence in Colorado for helping Donald Trump try to steal the 2020 election after having been found guilty on, I think, 9 separate felonies. And Donald Trump issued a full federal pardon for her, and she's still in a state prison in Colorado. So who gives a shit about federal immunity? He continued, anybody who lays a hand on you or tries to stop you or tries to obstruct you is committing a felony. He's leaving key parts of the law out. It requires physical force, essentially. Not completely, but that forcible prevention. You have immunity to perform your duties and no one can prevent you, yada, yada, yada. They will be guilty of criminal conspiracy against the United States and they will face justice. They will face justice. They will face justice by the Department of Justice that couldn't indict a guy who threw a sandwich at an ICE officer, and it was caught on film, and the grand jury refused to indict him. Multiple protesters in Los Angeles, grand juries refused to indict. Multiple times in Washington, D.C., grand juries refused to indict. They're going to face justice? From who? The fake U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Lindsay Halligan, who was determined over a month ago to have been appointed illegally, but is still masquerading as the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, and had to explain to a judge yesterday why she's still doing that, signing documents, that Department of Justice. What is protected activity, First Amendment protected activity, according to 18 U.S.C. 111? Speech or expression such as, fuck you, officer. Nonverbal communications, taking photographs, audio or video recordings of officers, refusing to comply with an ICE officer's orders, noncompliance. Peaceful protest, marching, rallies, passing out leaflets, holding signs, or picketing. Those are all protected under 18 U.S.C. 111. Examples: noncompliance or refusal to cooperate with an officer's commands, disobeying commands without fighting back, taking photographs or videotaping an officer in an operation in public. What else is not a violation of 18 U.S.C. 111? Using profanity or directing personal insults at officers, rude gestures directed at officers, arguing with officers, challenging officers' authority, talking back to officers during police contact. All of that is protected. None of that is a violation of 18 U.S.C. 111. I wouldn't expect Stephen Miller to know that, because that dickless naked mole rat did not go to law school, is not a lawyer, is a self-hating Jew whose family fled Europe during the Holocaust, settled in Southern California, and thereafter, Stephen Miller, growing up in Southern California, became so fucking psychologically damaged that he's now a racist, a bigot, a misogynist, a homophobe, transphobic, ableist, and an anti-Semite, allegedly. I've seen some TikToks from people who are all worked up in a tizzy over what Stephen Miller said today on TV. Stephen Miller is the Deputy Chief of Staff of the White House. He's not in a position to grant anybody immunity from anything. He's not a lawyer. He does not discharge the law in his position as Deputy White House Chief of Staff. He thinks he's a little dictator, and he's got the little dick part right, from what I hear. But just because Stephen Miller goes on TV and says something doesn't make it true. He can say whatever he wants on TV. He has a First Amendment right to do that, just as we all have a First Amendment right to walk up to an ICE officer, flip them off, call them a Nazi piece of shit, tell them that they should be ashamed of themselves, and that they're never going to get laid again. That's all protected speech under 18 U.S.C. 111. It's when you make physical contact with an ICE agent who is in the process of discharging their duties. If you go up to an ICE agent and you put your hands on them, you can stand 3 feet away from them and tell them what an absolute fucking piece of shit they are, and there is nothing under the law that they can do to prevent that or punish you for doing that. Again, I wouldn't expect Stephen Miller to do that, to know that, because Stephen Miller is also a phenomenally stupid man. He is unimaginably stupid. He has a dramatically overinflated sense of himself, all 5'4" and 3 inches when rock hard of him. He's just a little asshole and nothing more. And 3 years from now, he's probably going to go to prison.